Okay, so
Okay, I'm back.
Huh?
I said, okay, I'm back.
Fun fact,
too.
so when it records, it actually does put into a video, so I'm still gonna have to figure out how to drop all this crap off. Alright, love you too.
I love you too, Blade.
Alright, so we're
Love you too.
on that idea. And they did. That happened.
So, Blade,
That
you good, buddy? You've been sounding sick recently.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
You're not good, or you're not sick?
No. Oh wait, am I recording?
Yeah.
Oh crap. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
OneDrive is not signed in, and we are restoring my pages.
I no longer have guests over, so I can actually be a lot more interactive now.
All right.
Fantastic.
Where were we at? Something about African Americans?
I think you were giving spoilers about slavery, but you know.
Oh yeah, spoiler: slavery happened.
And they dodged the bullet about it, and like they were in the war and stuff like that. But like the people writing the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence / Constitution, were like, we're just gonna not say it's technically illegal yet. So they actually put it on Abraham.
This is all about slave trade and stuff, and I don't see why we're doing that in period 3, so I'm skipping that.
Understandable.
Oh yeah. So there's this idea of republicanism. You need to do what the nation does for the good of the country or something. Anyways, paradigm shift. Women before were seen as dangerous. Okay, it had to be controlled. By 1800, men were being portrayed as sexual predators.
I mean, yeah,
they
probably deserved it.
So confused. I don't know. That's bizarre. All right. Yeah. So okay. So this paradigm shift. Women have to be protected now. Morally innocent and pure than men. Inheritance laws. Yeah. Okay. American Revolution. Haitian Revolt. Unicameral legislator. What is this crap?
This is good. Me and the boys studying history.
What is this crap?
Uh-oh. Stinky.
What
is what? I wasn't looking at your screen.
Bicameral. This is when they're talking about federalism. All right. Okay, so basically, I forgot what unicameral and bicameral mean, but I think it has to do with, how there's
the houses or something.
Yeah, the houses. There's 2 houses in ours. Unicameral means 1 house. We ended up with the 2 houses, obviously. Give us 2 kind of votes here. Gives one to the smaller, gives everybody the equal power, and then gives states like power based off their population. A big takeaway here: Articles of Confederation was weak. Like, that crap was stupid. Nobody liked it. It needed a unanimous vote to change the rules, so it's basically impossible. Nobody would agree. No power to tax, so all they could do was beg. And
please, madam, I require money.
That ended up not working, because why would you donate money if nobody else is donating with you? Like, it's kind of stupid. So they started, like, Washington came on horseback and said, "Oh no, you guys are gonna donate. We're gonna make this voluntary. By voluntary, I'm gonna slice your jugular." So he basically threatened them with a sword, saying that if they didn't pay debts, there were going to be some consequences. And the farmers didn't like this. So what happened was Shays' Rebellion. So this is a first kind of a hint towards class conflict in America. You see that the poor farmers, or whatever they are, really just wanted to pay, like, get all their debts released and take their land back from the bank. And so they basically started rioting, and they said they needed to fix the Articles of Confederation. So
they were right.
They basically went back in, Well, let me say this first. They called a meeting, and originally the meeting was not about creating an entirely new thing. It was about kind of, just
Yeah.
changing a bit of the old one. But
Yeah.
then they saw how stupid it was.
And they scrapped it.
Like, we just need to start from the ground up. So they started just completely reworking it. We get the that you're not supposed to see that.
What did we see?
What?
Um,
Oh,
they started. What was I saying? Oh, they started talking about how there needs to be population stuff. We'd get stuff like the Missouri Compromise and the Great Compromise. So the Great Compromise would basically call for representatives, like I said, bicameral. It'd be based on one per state and population-based vote. So that's something there. The Three-Fifths Compromise. Each black person counted as 3/5 of the person representing their state. So basically, 3 out of every 5 slaves' votes actually mattered. This was because, of course, the South wanted them to count as population to get more in the bicameral population unit. And the North did not, because they didn't think that if they were going to be slaves, they shouldn't be counted as population. Of course, they kind of made a compromise here. Why it wasn't 1/2, because that seems more like a compromise of 3/5. I don't know. That's kind of a weird number, but it's just what they decided. We would get federalism and anti-federalists. Essentially, this was the division of powers between local and state government, and it would be a stronger national government. So they wanted to separate it into 3 branches: the legislative branch, which is made up of 2 houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Like I said, this is essentially what it is. Later, Congress passed a law that effectively banned the slave trade in the U.S. However, did not ban slavery in the U.S., just the importation of slaves. It's kind of like telling an alcoholic never to buy beer, but they have like an entire year's worth of beer already. So it's kind of useless. But I guess it stopped future slaves.
yeah, well, yeah, but then you just had slaves born in America.
Yeah, it's kind of like a breeding ground, forced them to breed.
Okay.
What else? Bill of Rights, promised rights because people were scared about it or something. Anti-Federalists were like, well, we don't have rights. And they're like, you're right. So they made the Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
The Federalist Papers, Jay, Hamilton, and Madison basically started diss tracks on the Anti-Federalists or something.
Or something.
Yeah. Rhode Island had to be threatened with being treated as foreign country if they didn't ratify it. They did after Washington was off. Okay. So I didn't know
Your biggest
that.
concern being Rhode Island.
That's hilarious. I guess they just threatened. Washington became president. That was almost unanimous. It's like, he was like, I guess I could be president. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Of course, as you know, he would set the 2-term limit kind of idea.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute. He created the cabinet with like the state and the treasury and vice president, Mr. President and stuff. Established neutrality as our foreign policy until World War II. So our entire philosophy here was be isolationist, just kind of separate ourselves from the other countries so we don't get too entangled with foreign politics, which not how we are nowadays, but we'll get to that in a minute. He used the veto twice. Federal court systems were established. He oversaw some new states like Vermont, Kentucky, and Tennessee. He created the Bank of the United States with Hamilton. Made the national capital the Potomac. Jay's Treaty and Picnic Treaty. We did not talk about those in APUSH, but they were in my book. We may do that some other time. Farewell address is super important. Washington warned of 2 main things. He warned of increasingly polarizing parties. Essentially what we have in the Democrats and Republicans today, completely the opposite ends of the spectrum, constantly at war, tearing the country apart. He said that would be the end of the United States as we know it. And he also said that if we kept getting entangled in foreign alliances, stuff like getting into the business of other countries, like we do nowadays with China and North Korea, that's going to continuously wear on us until we eventually make too many enemies that we cannot handle. And that would be true in World War II. We would, by us kind of standing by everybody else, we would create a larger, bigger war. And because of these complex alliances, it would have adverse effects on us. But that's for another talk about World War II. He created Adams, the next president.
Birthed him.
So basically, Washington was like, yep, 2 terms is all you need. That's all. Keep it that way. Adams was like, okay. Made the Navy, made the Marines. XYZ affair, we're back to it.
Hey.
How much farther do we have?
Boy, know what
A
he's
lot.
talking about. I actually don't.
Okay.
Close the thing. Dang it.
So America was basically just boating along at their own stuff.
We be boating.
Yeah, they were just boating. Right? Let me make sure that I'm doing this right. I'm saying all this. I don't want to be giving some false
No,
facts.
I don't believe boating was the correct term.
You do be boating, though.
Okay.
You bulling
Who
and
started this? I forgot. They were boating around, right?
I don't know, when was a steamboat made? Not that you had to have a steamboat to boat, but
I was about to say this. Let's see here. Do I have to watch the video again?
what video?
The video of all
Oh,
of
the
them?
Monday one?
Let's see. All right. Oh, okay, yeah. All right, going back. So, oh. Are they appearing? Oh, welcome, Zoe, with a umlaut over the E and a butterfly and a conch. You just hopped in the middle of the meeting. We're in the middle of the XYZ affairs.
I believe that's a leaf.
Oh, that sucks. Anyways, as I was saying, the French were basically like, we're going to shoot down all these ships, and they shot down our ships, and the Americans were like, we're trying to boat here. I don't know why you were kind of like being mean to us, being petty. And they're like, well, we were just boating. And then
We're just bowling.
France was like, yeah. And they're like, well, you need to just kind of pay up some money, and maybe we'll protect you. And of course, nobody likes to tell Americans Americans don't like to be told what to do. So they said, screw you, and they started firing back at the French ships. And it started this kind of like Cold War thing where they just kept threatening each other until France just backed off because they were too scared. And yeah, it was just kind of an example that we were going to be a powerful nation. And if not a powerful one, a stubborn one. So it was one or the other, and we chose to be at least one of them. So
it was yes or no, and we chose either yes or no.
Oh, yay! Democratic Republicans. I don't remember about them. Anyways, it's important to remember that the Federalists believed in a loose interpretation of the Constitution. If the Constitution did not say it was well, then sure, you could go ahead and do it. And so, for one example, they tried to set up a national bank, and the Democratic Republicans were like, "Oh, I don't think the Constitution says that." And the Federalists were like, "Well, it doesn't not say to not do it." And this was called like the rubber band kind of like interpretation of the Constitution. And we essentially take that kind of like interpretation nowadays. But the Democratic Republicans did not want to open a bank because they believed in the strict concept that if it didn't follow the Constitution, then it shouldn't be done. So they also relied on an agrarian society. So they wanted to like basically ensure that everything was based on farmers, that they were the backbone of our societies. It was a concept that Benjamin Franklin made, and it was just really important to them. The Federalists and Democratic Republicans were already supporting certain nations, which is exactly what Washington was warning of course. So,
Yep.
oh, my computer's making noises. That's fun. All right. Northwest Ordinance banished slavery from the Great Lakes state. This is when we're getting the issue of slavery. So it's starting to become clear now that people are actually having an issue with it. And with Eli Whitney's cotton gin, it starts to accelerate how much they're making off of it. So of course they're going to have more and more slaves. And the North relied on the South for all the trade. Like, how are they going to get the cotton to trade if they do not have the South? So the North is kind of like they have blood on their hands too. They are actively participating in this kind of slavery thing. So what are they supposed to do? Well, they did want to crack down on slavery a bit. So we'll get to that later, apparently, in the outline. I don't know why I would even mention it there, because I was about to go into it. But basically, the South remained on slavery and agriculture, and the North was focused on just trading. But that trade did focus on the South's agriculture too, so it was kind of all connected in this huge web. I don't care about that. All right. Any questions so far? Zoe.
So far, so good.
Questions, Zoe.
How do I do this?
What? What?
Oh my gosh. Is
Hey.
that how you speak? Hold on.
Yeah, you're speaking right now.
Okay. I was so confused.
Got any questions?
Um.
By the way, you're being recorded right now.
Okay.
No pressure.
No, I don't have any questions.
All right. Going back, something about Native Americans. I mean, honestly, all you really need to know about the Native Americans now is that we're screwing them over, and they fight back a lot, and they lose a lot. And we try to assimilate them into our culture. We believe that ours is superior, and they should become less savage. So we just try to shove them into our concept of what's good and what's right.
Yep.
Whiskey Rebellion, who cares? Ordinance of 1784, don't know. All right.
Okay, so can we recap real quick? So we started out before the revolution. We were fighting with France and the Indians, stuff like that. Britain was like, no, don't go past this point. The Americans were like, we're going to do it anyway. So they started to tax us because we caused a lot of money. We got mad at their taxes and did all this stuff, and then basically caused the war. And then we made the Declaration of Independence, then the Constitution, then the Bill of Rights because people were like angry about it. Then we got the two-house system, or like the house system we have now, and the three branches. And then like we kind of glanced over slavery because we didn't know what to deal with it then. And then George Washington was first president. He set the precedent for the next. He set like the precedent for the next presidents. And we had the XYZ affairs with France, I think, and like I don't know what else.
Yeah, that's essentially. And then we get the rise of the Federalists and Anti-Federalists, stuff like that. The bank.
Yeah.
Let's see here. This is not really talked about a bunch. All right. I've already talked about that. XYZ affair. Jeffersonians, they were essentially the Democratic Republicans. That's another name for them. So, yeah, it's essentially recapping everything we said here again. Essentially, we were officially France's allies, but we just tried to kind of distance ourselves from them because, like Washington said, we need to stop getting mixed up in affairs. And this was because we were trying to safeguard our borders and maintain neutral trading rights, just all in the protection of our country. And that really ends that part. So what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna open up some of the SAQ questions, and we're just gonna go through them, kind of describe them.
When do the liberals get destroyed?
Yeah, liberal dead.
The crook on.
Okay, so let's list 3 factors that helped lead to the American Revolution.
Is that the first SAQ?
Yes, this is the first SIQ. This is the one I did.
I
Try
think
it.
this is what I'm gonna do.
This is the one that I did because I felt like it was the easiest. It's the one I knew.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about doing myself.
Yeah, honestly, it's easy. And I'll give you them right now. I'm not gonna spend so much time on all of these SAQs. I'm just gonna briefly chop through them all, show you all the answers. So essentially, for this one, what you need to know is that taxation without representation was a big one. Since they did not get representation in Congress, even though they had to pay all the taxes, they still they were just mad about that. Why would you pay taxes but not get the right to vote? As a taxpayer of America, you expect that you should get the right to vote. It's kind of like a inferred thing. And that was one big reason that led to the American Revolution. Another, solitary neglect. Britain there wasn't really exercising their power for a long time. They kind of were like not a helicopter parent, but they were just kind of let loose, they watched from afar, didn't really have anybody there to enforce the rules. And then America got this taste of freedom that they wanted after they came back in. And of course, because of all this, they would kind of be more rebellious once Britain tried to crack down on them. And finally, one of the last reasons is the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act was the most horrendous act in terms of leading to the American Revolution because it started taxing their mail products and their stamps and their everything they had, and they thought the prices were way too high for any human being to actually pay for. And this is kind of where it drew the line, because this, along with the quartering acts and all the stuff that Britain has been doing them dirty, they felt like this was kind of overstepping the lines, and it wasn't really about the taxation and representation in this part. It's more about the fact that they would do this after all this. And of course, the Stamp Act was made in regards to the Proclamation of 1763, if you remember correctly. They tippy-toed over the line.
Question.
Britain had what?
Sorry, I was gonna say, is the Stamp Act all the things are the paper and the tea and all that kind of stuff? Is that all included?
It's just the paper. But typically, when someone talks about the Stamp Act, they kind of equate it with the Tea Act because it kind of goes on with it. But the Stamp Act in general is just the paper products, but it came along with the Tea Act. Now, we would tippy-toe over the Appalachian Mountains, get Britain involved in the French and Indian War. They would raise taxes on us, and we didn't understand where they were coming from, that we started a war and stuff. And they felt like that was a bad thing. And that's essentially 3 distinct factors that would cause the American Revolution. And another one you could say is that these ideas of enlightenment were starting to grow throughout the community, the freedom of press and the rights of life, liberty, and happiness, nationalism. That was all stuff that cultivated in America and helped people think well, maybe we should start doing that. So that's kind of one thing that led to it. Anyways, on to the next SAQ. So let's see here. So basically here, Nash is talking about agricultural society. If you remember, agrarian societies were more in line to the Democratic Republicans' beliefs. He believed that we depended on farmers mostly. Even though that we traded, the farmers still relied on the trader, or the traders still relied on the farmers. And this guy right here, Mayor, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what this guy's saying. Yeah, I don't like this one. I'm going to skip it because I don't feel like doing it. I got a headache. All right. More views on the revolt. No, thank you. I don't want to do that one either. I'm just skipping all the ones that have quotes. Oh, let's do this one. I can do this one. All right. So, as we stated in the kind of like tangent I went on, American Revolution was super important for women's rights because this period of nationalism would kind of give women the idea like, if everybody is truly made equal, then shouldn't women have the same rights as men? And we get that in the Sunoka or whatever convention, where they would kind of spin around the idea of the Constitution. And we would also see that there was a shift from like women being perceived as dangerous to being innocent, and that they needed to be protected. Now, let's look here.
So you said women shifted towards more individualism because of the revolution?
Yes.
Okay.
So, okay. The major differences between these two is that this guy right here, Crane, is essentially saying that America's Revolution was not at all a very big moment for women's rights because it didn't really have any large-scale changes to their rights. However, this Zagari kind of argues that that women are now seen as political beings who kind of like have some role in war politics and history. Now that they're engaged in a variety of actions to support the revolutionary cause, they are becoming more important to our society, and they're slowly growing their importance. So that's the main difference between these two. So something that could support his is that we don't really see women's rights all that established. In fact, we go into Sunoka Convention, we get later, women still do not have those rights, and they have to even turn this whole constitution back around to show them like, yeah, we don't have rights even though we're equal. So that could be one like support for Crane's arguments. Women didn't have all these rights back then, and it's not big. It's more of that it was a philosophy change, and we didn't get like a huge reformation until later on, until the late 1800s, early 1900s. As for Zagari's argument, a lot could be made about how women help with the sewing and the stuff. If we go back, oh, I X'd out of it. But if you remember back in the other half, I mentioned how women sewed and they helped on the front lines by kind of caring for the homes and stuff. This idea that women could help out in the war, even if they weren't on the front lines, was an idea of how they could help support the revolutionary cause. So that's kind of like two different perspectives, how you get on those. See here, we got two more SAQs and I'm ending it, and I don't know where. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, as to the revolution, history of the revolution.
Question. This SAQs, how long did you make yours? Just like, this is briefly describe.
I'll show you. 1 second. The thing will go away, please. Please, thank you. Okay. All right. It's right here. I repeated a lot, but this is essentially what I wrote.
Holy cow, that's a lot more than I have.
I probably overkilled it, but it was my first one. I did it yesterday. I didn't really have all my thoughts in order. I was kind of acting like this was the AP test, and I was writing it all in one go, nonstop.
Is that what we're supposed to do for APUSH?
Yeah, we're supposed to do one SAQ question.
Each day this week?
No. We just have to
Just
do
for this
one.
week.
Just answer one question this whole
Just
week?
answer one, yes. And like I said, I'm going to record this video, so if you want to listen back over to my notes and stuff over the SAQs, I'm about to go over these last two that you can use.
Alrighty.
Let's see here. All right. So one second. So both of these arguments here are basically saying that there's kind of this mistake of people equating the idea of a revolution to a war. So this guy right here, Thomas Jefferson, is saying, oh no, I'm sorry, John Adams is saying that the revolution didn't start by the first bloodshed. The revolution was slowly brought into the minds of the humans, and the war only started at the drop of a bloodshed at Lexington. So he's basically saying that revolution doesn't automatically start when war starts. Revolution is always in the minds of the people before the war starts. And this guy kind of argues that too. There's a difference between war and revolution, but he kind of takes it a different direction. He says, even though a war can be over, a revolution isn't always over. So, like for example, even after this, we would raise tariffs on Britain and kind of battle them on the economic front. So even though the American war is over, our revolution isn't, because we're constantly taunting them and trying to show our dominance in the economy. So by doing that, we show that the American Revolution is never really over. Every single day, we are still stuck in that American Revolution. So one difference between these is that John Adams argues for the fact that the revolution exists previously to the war, and Benjamin Rush argues that the American Revolution exists after the war. So they're talking about two different times right now. As for some things to John Adams, before Lexington, we already saw boycott of goods. If you remember correctly in the first part of the video, or my tangent here, we talked about how they would boycott a bunch of British goods before they started fighting, and they would trade with other countries disregarding the rules. And because of all this, it would hurt Britain. And if you didn't follow the rules, they would beat you up. So even though there wasn't a war at this time, America was already resisting Britain and their trade. And as for one that supports Rush, like I said, there was a boycott right after this. There was a tariff that was meant to protect the American economy right after this. And it would heavily tax British goods. All right? And our last one is about the Articles of Confederation. All right. Briefly explain how one specific historical development represents an accomplishment of the national government under the Articles of Confederation.